Hi guys, it's Stefan again, and welcome to my spoiler-free this time review of Star Trek Avenger. I wanted to give a little bit of plot away with the return before this to give you an idea of how the Shatnerverse Star Trek, that type of storytelling differs from what is considered to be more canon mainline Star Trek novels. And Star Trek The Avenger, I will say, overall is a much better book than The Return, and probably my favorite of the three, Ashes of Eden, The Return, and Avenger, because it feels to have a more realistic threat and plot and a more interesting dynamic between some of the characters. It starts off with a mysterious plague that is threatening the Federation, particularly the Federation supply chain of real like food stocks and things like that, and is killing off young animals and spreading to people. And it's presented in an interesting way that, unlike the Borg-Romulan alliance thing, the perception of how the Borg act as compared to what is considered canon in the series, this threat and a lot of the underlying mystery behind it that we explore throughout the novel feel more canonical. They feel more based in Star Trek reality. It's just presented in a way that it gives a more interesting plot and ties in with some interesting things involving the death of Sarek, Spock's father, and you get a really great old school, original series TOS romp through the galaxy with these aging, decrepit, stars and heroes of the Golden Age, and it's presented in a much better light and is a more interesting and complete action, adventure, mystery tale. It does still have that same level of Captain Kirk worship and demoralizing the Next Generation crew and not presenting them really in the truest light to how we've come to know their characters, but it's not quite as blatant as in The Return. It's still pretty bad and still very true to the style of the Shatnerverse novels, but it's more bearable this time, and I think it's more bearable because the story around it feels more competent and complete and logical than in The Return. So overall, The Avenger is a much better book, and it's worth, again, as I said before, reading through a lot of these books, especially the first three books in the Shatnerverse, Ashes of Eden, The Return, and Avenger, to get this interesting take and some pretty unique story ideas that a mix of good and bad, but pretty good. And definitely if you are a fan of the original series more than anything else, and you're not going to be quite as bothered by some of the Next Generation stuff, it's a better story for you overall. But if you are a real fan of all things Star Trek and like to look at everything equally and really compare quality versus just plain nostalgia, and you like to look at everything and you're a fan of the whole series, there are some definite characterization issues, and again, Shatner's ego takes over. But The Avenger, a much better book, definitely a one to go ahead and take a read.